Hello everybody, this is Gregory with 5 Minute Catholic Apologetics and Living, where 5 minutes every time I get you to the divine. Habemus Papam, we have a new Pope, Leo XIV, and we should just not really care. Now before we begin, let's start with a prayer. In nomine Patris et Filii et Spiritui Sancti, Amen. Gloria Patri et Filii et Spiritui Sancto, sequitur in principio et nunc et semper, et in saecula saeculorum. Amen. Now, what we should care about is that we have a Pope, 267th successor of Peter. This is important, right? We need a shepherd. Now, if you've watched the last few episodes I've done since the death of Francis, like, for example, how to approach the conclave and whatnot, you always know there's a kind of a reoccurring theme that I see that way too many Catholics, and in particular American Catholics, spend too much time focusing on things that ultimately are not important for our salvation. So on the episode I did on the number one way to focus on the conclave, the answer was don't. Because ultimately you're not choosing the Pope, so why does it really matter to do the analysis and breakdown of the different candidates and whatnot? And it's the same thing. I'm glad we have a Pope. People have been asking me what's my take on Provost, Leo XIV, the American Pope. I don't know the man. I don't have an opinion. Like at this point, I'm sure people are deep diving now on Wikipedia and all this. I'm recording this Friday morning. You're deep diving on Reddit. What was Prevost? He was the head of dicaster of bishops. What was his opinion on this? I'm sure the media is scouring like every interview he's ever done and everything he said. And ultimately, you got to remember, throughout Christendom, throughout Catholic history, the large majority of the time, the typical Catholic knew nothing about the Pope. Maybe at the most they knew the Pope's name, but they didn't know anything about their leanings or their interviews or anything about it. And you know what? That didn't affect their salvation. And it's the same thing in 2025, guys, in this Jubilee year. Who the Pope is doesn't matter. It's great that we have him. It's weird. I went to daily Mass today and I heard his name in the Eucharistic prayer. I got to get used to Leo XIV's name. That's great. We need a shepherd. Let's hope he's a good shepherd. If he's a horrible shepherd, oh well, we've survived 2,000 years. We're the longest institution of human history. We've had really bad popes. Most of the bad popes have been bad on a moral level, not theological level. On a moral level. And if he's a bad pope, you know what? The gates of hell will never prevail on us. We will survive. The Romans had that saying. We have a fat pope, then we have a skinny pope. Then we have a fat pope, then we have a skinny. It just moves on. Speaking of, I think Leo XIV kind of has a look of a little of like Pius XII, his face. Little Pius XII, little Paul VI when I saw him. So look, we got a Pope, move on. What do I mean by move on? Our salvation is not linked to who the Pope is. I think we get stuck, we don't see the forest from the trees. Yeah, that's the expression. And that we focus on like, he's going to do this. He's going to take away the live match. He's going to rebat the live match. He's going to do that. Gay marriage. Ultimately, it doesn't have any relevance to you in your road to salvation. Christ says those who persevere to the end will be saved. We know what we need to do to be saved as Catholics. Believe in Jesus Christ, have a relationship, be in a state of grace, do your works of mercy, blah, 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 blah. Doesn't really matter. So yes, we have maybe a great Pope, maybe not so great Pope. I will say this. I was happy that it was Leo XIV the name. If you go back to the episode, I'll see if I'll put it on the homepage, on my video on my top three guesses on the papal name. I did this even before Francis was sick. I probably did this like 6 months ago. I'm brewing Gyokuro, which is a shaded Japanese green, so it gets bitter really fast if you steep it too long, and I steeped it 3 minutes. The fact that you picked the name Leo XIV was one of the top three names that I picked, and I liked it because I liked Leo XIII. I liked the fact that he chose that name. You look at the fact that he was likely a compromise candidate, no doubt. He was chosen in the fourth overall ballot. You could say, I think a lot of jingoistic Americans who've been, yeah, American Pope, he's on our team, go America, go. Team America, world police kind of mindset. I'm like, I was shocked that we got an American Pope, to be honest. I think he identifies probably less as an American. We'll see. Like when he was doing the Urbi et Orbi, the blessing, I was like waiting. Okay, I was like, cool. He's speaking Italian, great. Oh, he's speaking in Spanish. English will be next. He didn't do any English. And I have to say, I was a little disappointed. I'm like, let me say, you were living in Chicago 30 years through your formative lives. You're an American. Yeah, I know he has Italian, Spanish, immigrant parents, or that's their blood. But it's like, Holy Father, where's the English? But I think it's the kind of the narrative. He doesn't want to be seen as an American Pope. But maybe we'll do a future episode like, what's his relationship with Trump's going to be? I think it's not going to be a good relationship, but that's a future thing to talk about. The fact that he was an Augustinian monk, the fact that he was a missionary, I think these are all good things. You could be a cynic and say, you remember who else was an Augustinian monk? Martin Luther. I think he was probably chosen as a compromise because he ran the dicastery of bishops, so he knows a lot of the bishops, and that means also the cardinals. Obviously, he probably knows every bishop. He is, since the last 2 years or so, was in charge of picking new bishops. There's going to be a lot of negative press from the rad-trads about how he was responsible for getting Bishop Strickland removed. I don't know. I wasn't there. Maybe he was just rubber stamping, and Strickland made it so hard. Because the thing about Strickland that a lot of rad-trads don't understand is like it was more of like the economics of how he is running his diocese. And it wasn't necessarily like he was spouting his mouth. That probably didn't help. But it was less of that. And maybe his hands were tied, really. But we'll see. At this point, we will find out from expert theologians and everything, like what his past appointments can mean. But really, you got to go in now with what are his future appointments. Now he's got to make all the appointments for all the dicasteries, because now he's the Pope, so all the old leaders of the dicasteries go away. So now we will get to see a lot based on what he picks. What do I think? I think the fact that he did not pick a papal name post-Vatican II would suggest that he's maybe a little center of right. Now remember, a lot of these cardinals don't show their hands. It's kind of like when you're a super conservative kid in college, like you can't show your hand that you're conservative because you might flunk out all your classes because you have an uber Marxist professor, and so you have to kind of lay low until you graduate. I think it could be the same thing. For all we know, he could be center of right. I hate using political terms when it comes to Catholicism, but he could be right of center, and he could be a great pope. But ultimately, if he's a bad pope, doesn't matter. We'll get another one, and we'll get another one, and we'll get another one. It doesn't affect your salvation. So please, in closing, don't be digging down on Reddit. Don't be wasting all your time. None of that improves you. Work on stuff that improves our virtue, improves our charity, improves our chances of getting to heaven. Guys, post in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. Until next time, take care. God bless and pray.